Act 1 of Tom Cobb or Fortune's Toy by W.S. Gilbert. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Dramatis Personae.
Colonel O'Phip, an Irish Adventurer. Read by Aiken.
Tom Cobb, Young Surgeon. Read by Dale Robbins.
Whipple, Young Surgeon. Read by Adrian Stevens.
Matilda O'Phip, the Colonel's Daughter. Read by Helena Diamandis.
Mr. Effingham, member of a romantic family. Read by Todd.
Mrs. Effingham, member of a romantic family. Read by Wendy Katz Hiller.
Bulstrode Effingham, member of a romantic family. Read by Alan Mapstone.
Caroline Effingham, member of a romantic family. Read by Annie Mars.
Biddy, read by Ashley Jane.
Footman, read by Andrew Gantz.
Stage directions by Ali Wansky. Scene: a shabby but pretentious sitting room in Colonel O'Phip's house. Breakfast laid. Enter Tom Cobb with open letter in his hand.
I haven't a penny. I haven't the ghost of a prospect of a penny. In debt everywhere. And now I'm told that judgment's been signed against me for £250 by the cruelest Jew in Christendom. Upon my soul, it's enough to make a fellow shy things about. I swear it is. But everything always did go wrong with me, even before I was born. For I was always expected to be a girl, and turned out something quite different. And no fault of mine, I'm sure.
Producing pistol.
Oh, if I was only quite sure I knew how to load it, I'd blow my brains out this minute. I would, upon my word and honor.
Enter Matilda.
And what good would that do, dear?
It would rid the world of an unhappy wretch. The world's a beast, and I hate it.
Then if you hate it, what do you want to be doing it a good turn for? Sure, it would be a bad bargain, lovey, for you'd lose the world, whereas the world'd only lose you.
Takes pistol away from him.
There's truth in that.
If I was you, dear, I'd go on living to spite it.
Oh, ain't that small? Oh, ain't that like a woman?
And after all, you not so badly off. Don't you board and lodge on nominal terms with a rare colonel?
Yes, that's true enough.
And ain't ye engaged to a rare colonel's daughter? And isn't that something to live for?
Goes to table and cuts bread and butter. Tom seated.
Oh, I've plenty to live for, but I've nothing to live on. Upon my word, Matilda, when you come to think of it, it is a most extraordinary thing that I can't get any patients. I'm a qualified practitioner, right enough. I've passed the College of Surgeons.
So have I, dear. Often.
You can't be more a surgeon than I am. Put it how you will. But nobody seems to know it. And I'm sure I don't know how to tell 'em. I can't send sandwichmen about with advertisements. The college wouldn't like that. I can't hang placards about from a real colonel's balcony. Walk up, this is the shop for amputations, or to married couples and others. The horse guards wouldn't like that.
Taking up carving knife.
Upon my word, Matilda, when I look at you and reflect that there isn't an operation in the whole range of practical surgery that I shouldn't be delighted to perform upon you at 5 minutes' notice for nothing, why, it does seem a most extraordinary thing that I can't get any patients.
Enter Colonel O'Phip in seedy, showy dressing gown.
Good morning, Thomas. Matilda, my own. The morning to you.
Kisses her.
Breakfast ready? That's well. Good appetite, Thomas.
They sit to breakfast.
Tremendous.
Taking an egg. O'Phip aside.
Then I'll spoil it for you.
Aloud.
Don't crack that egg till you're sure you'll want it.
Takes it from him.
Thomas Cobb, I'm going to have a word or two with you about your prospects, sir.
Oh, Lord.
Turns away from his breakfast.
When I gave my consent to your engagement with me beautiful and beloved daughter, don't cry, my child.
No, Pa.
Takes an egg.
You told me you were about to purchase a practice, and, like a simple old soldier, I believed you.
Sure, and so he was. Didn't he introduce him to Ben Isaacs? And didn't he lend him the money to do it?
Which your papa immediately exchanged for bills.
Which is another term for money.
Another term for money?
Papa has always been accustomed to regard his IOUs as currency.
Why, who do you suppose would sell me a practice for a bundle of your IOUs?
My name, sir, is considered in the city to be as good for £1,000 as for 100.
Papa's is one of the oldest names in the kingdom.
Yes, sir. And let me tell you, it's on some of the oldest bills in the kingdom, too. Such is the value of my name that I suppose I have renewed oftener than any man alive. And it isn't every man that can say that.
But when I try to discount your paper, capitalists always say, "Who's O'Phip?" And when I tell him he's a colonel, they say, "What's he a colonel of?"
Colonel of a regiment, to be sure.
Yes, but in what service?
Never mind the service, sir. It was the 27th Regiment of it. That's enough for any man. There's many a service besides the British service, I believe, sir.
Oh, I believe there's a good many.
There's the Spanish service, sir, and the Hungarian service, and the Italian service, and the French service, and the...
And the dinner service.
And the church service.
No, sir. When a gentleman asks me my regiment, he has a right to know it, and I tell him at once. But when he asks me in what service, sir, why, that's a piece of impertinent curiosity, and I ask him what the devil he means by it.
Oh, I'm sure I don't care. The regiment's quite enough for me, but then I ain't a capitalist.
Well, sir, let us come to the point. For 2 months you've been engaged to my lovely and accomplished daughter.
To Matilda.
Don't cry, me love.
No, Pa.
Takes an egg.
And you're as far from marrying her as ever. Now, during the last 2 months, my poor child's been wasting the best years of her life, and she can't wait much longer. Can you, Matilda?
Deed, and I can't then. I'm 29 and a bit.
She's 29 and a bit. Now, it's right to tell you, and you too, Matilda, that a gentleman of good birth, irreproachable morals, and a considerable command of ready money has done me the honour to propose for me daughter's hand. I say no more, sir. As a man of honour, there's 2 courses open to you, and I leave you to decide which of them you'll take.
Exit O'Phip.
Matilda, did you hear that?
Yes, Tom, I heard that.
Who is the scoundrel who has dared to aspire to your hand?
Deed, and I don't know, but it'll be someone who's lending money to Papa. I generally go with the bills.
What?
When a body falls in love with me, Papa generally borrows money of him, and he gives bills, and I go with him. It's a rule of the family.
Rises.
But surely you'll never countenance such a bargain.
Deed, and I don't want to, Tom dear, but I've countenanced it for 13 years now, and sure it'll look odd to refuse now. Besides, dear, I'm not as young as I was.
No, but then you're not as old as you might be.
No, but I'm as old as I mean to be. There's rising for ye, Tom, and you want it.
Well, I'm sure I don't know what to do. I'm at my wit's end.
Then it's the beginning end, and there's hope for ye yet.
Knock.
Who's that?
There now, if it ain't your friend Whipple's carriage.
Whipple! Whipple with a carriage! A fool, an impostor, a quack with a carriage! What does he want to come flaunting his one-horse fly in my face for? There, I actually did that man's botany papers for him at college, and now he's been rolling in fever patients. Literally rolling in fever patients, while I haven't one to my back.
Well, maybe he'll help ye if ye ask him. He's a pleasant man.
Pleasant, is he? I don't know what you call pleasant. Why, there's a squalid old pauper idiot, a patient of his, who's got no name of his own. And Whipple christened him Tom Cobb because he says he's the ugliest old lunatic he's ever saw, and reminds him of me. And all the boys in the neighborhood have taken it up, and he's been known as Tom Cobb for these last 2 years. That's pleasant of Whipple.
Sure, it's his joke.
Yes, I know it's his joke, but I don't like his joke. One Tom Cobb's enough at a time, and...
Taking out pistol.
If I was only quite sure I knew how to load it, I'd snuff one of 'em out this minute. I would. Upon my word and honor, I would.
Exit Cobb.
Poor Tom. He's an innocent boy, and he's fond of me, and I like him too. It's a pity he ain't rich. And now, who's the gentleman with the command of ready money he's proposed for me? I'd like to know.
Enter Biddy.
Mr. Whipple.
Exit Biddy. Enter Whipple.
Miss Matilda, don't think me premature for calling, but I came because I really couldn't wait any longer.
And ye did right. Sit ye down.
I couldn't help it. You're not angry?
Sits.
Not I. If ye couldn't help it, what were ye to do?
Sits.
I declare I haven't slept a wink all night from anxiety.
Would you like to take a snooze on the sofa?
A snooze? Miss Matilda, hasn't your father told you?
Told me? Told me what?
Why, that I...
You never mean to sit there and tell me ye the young gentleman of high family, unembellished morals, and considerable command of ready money?
That's me. He has told you. Yes, Miss Matilda, I have dared...
But don't ye know I'm engaged to your friend, Tom Cobb?
Tom Cobb? Yes, I know you are. A mule, a clod, an unsuccessful clod. Yes, I know he's tied to you as a log is tied to the leg of a runaway donkey. I beg your pardon, I didn't mean that. But you can't really love him.
Deed, and I like him very well then. He's a good boy. But tell me now, is it Bill's?
Well, yes. Since you put it like that, it is Bill's.
Then I tell ye what, Mr. Whipple, I'm tired of being handed over with stamped paper.
There was no stamp on it. Indeed, there was no stamp on it. It was an IOU.
It's the same thing. I like Tom Cobb better than I like you, and if he'll marry me, in a month I'll have him. And if he won't, why, I'll talk to you. There's your answer now, and don't bother again.
In a month?
Aside.
In a month? He shan't marry her in a month. If I can only manage to get him out of the way and keep him there for a few weeks. I'll do it. It'll cost money, but I'll do it.
Enter Tom Cobb.
Ah, Tom, my boy, I'm delighted to see you. How uncommonly jolly you're looking, to be sure.
Yes, I should say I was looking uncommonly jolly.
Why, what's the matter?
Why, a good many things. And look here, Whipple. I wish next time you want a godfather for a nameless papa, you'd choose somebody else.
Oh, you mean ugly old Tom Cobb. I beg your pardon, but he was so like you I couldn't help it. But there, that needn't distress you, for he died last night, and there's an end of him. Never mind, old boy. I'll make it up to you some day.
Will you? Whipple, I'm in an awful fix about Ben Isaac's bill. Now you're well off. I did your botany paper for you at college. Will you lend me £250 upon my personal security? I want a plain answer. Yes or no?
My dear boy, of course, with pleasure.
My dear Whipple!
You shall have it, of course.
Feeling for his handkerchief.
When?
Why, now, if you like.
What? The money?
No, the plain answer.
Takes out handkerchief, uses it, and returns it.
I haven't a penny at my banker's. I've lent it all to the Colonel. What have you done with the money?
Well, I lent it all to the Colonel. He borrowed it the very day he agreed to my engagement with Matilda. Didn't he, dear?
Matilda clearing away breakfast things.
Just that very same day, dear. Directly after I told him you were going to propose for me, and immediately before you did it.
Good soldier, the Colonel.
Oh, he didn't borrow it because he wanted it. He borrowed it to prevent my wasting it in foolishness. He said so. But I should like to have a go in at some foolishness now and then. If it was only a pair of trousers or half a dozen socks.
Yes, you want socks.
Exit Matilda with breakfast things.
But what's the use of socks to a man who's going to blow his brains out? Whipple, I do assure you on my honor, if I knew a safe and perfectly painless way of popping out of this world into comfortable quarters in the next, I'd adopt it. Upon my word and honor, I'd adopt it.
Do you mean that?
Yes, I mean that.
Then I'll help you. Now, observe, my old pauper patient, Tom Cobb, died last night. He hasn't a friend or relation in the world to claim him. Well, I certify to his death, and he's comfortably buried, and there's an end of old Tom Cobb.
The ugly one?
The ugly one, of course.
I don't see what you're driving at.
Don't you? Why, if Tom Cobb's dead and buried, what becomes of the bill Tom Cobb gave Ben Isaacs?
But the ugly Tom Cobb never gave a bill.
A light breaks upon him.
Oh, you cunning devil!
Now then, what do you say to dying by deputy?
By Jove, it's worth thinking of.
Worth thinking of? It's worth jumping at without stopping to think at all.
I believe you're right.
After a pause.
I'll do it. I'm a dead man. I can come to life again, I suppose, when I like.
Oh, yes, under another name, but you'll have to hide away for a few months.
Oh,
Turning out his pockets.
But how about burial fees?
Will £25 do it?
£25 will just do it.
Then come along at once to my house and take leave of this life.
But you'll let me take a last farewell of Matilda?
No, no, bother Matilda.
Taking his arm.
Oh, but you mustn't bother Matilda.
Now, do come along.
Hang it all. Let me see her before the tomb closes over me for 3 months.
No, you can write to her. Now come at once, or I won't help you.
Then farewell, Matilda. I go to my doom. Whipple, during my decease, I confide her to you. be a mother to her.
Kissing photograph.
Farewell, unhappy Matilda. Be true to my memory, for I am as good as dead, and you are engaged to a body.
He staggers out wildly, followed by Whipple. Enter Matilda.
Now, where's he gone with Whipple, I'd like to know? That Whipple's up to some bedevilment with him. I'll go bail.
Enter Biddy.
Please, miss, here's a young lady as says she must see you and won't take no denial.
A young lady?
Enter Caroline in great agitation. She is a romantic-looking young lady with long curls and gushing, poetical demeanor. She pauses melodramatically.
Matilda? Do you know me?
Deed, and I don't. Why, if it isn't my old schoolfellow, Carrie Effingham. It's Carrie as I'm a living sinner.
Yes, I came into town yesterday, and though 10 long, weary years have flown since last we met, I could not pass my dear old friend's abode without one effort to awake those slumbering chords that struck in unison ever found ready echoes in our sisters' hearts.
Why, ye talk nonsense as well as ever, dear, but I'm glad to see ye.
She sits. Caroline kneels at her feet.
How very well you are looking. And heavens, how lovely.
Yes, dear, you're looking older. You're not married yet, I suppose?
Alas, no.
Wiping her eyes.
Don't fret, dear. It'll come.
Oh, Matilda, a maiden's heart should be as free as the summer sun itself, and it's sad when, in youth's heyday, its trilling gladness has been trodden underfoot by the iron-shod heel of a serpent.
Yes, and it's sad when it's happened. Tell me all about it.
Swear that, come what may, no torture shall ever induce you to reveal the secret I am going to confide in you.
Oh, I'll swear that with pleasure.
Will you believe me when I tell you that I have loved?
Oh, yes.
And that I have been loved in return?
Well, yes. Oh, yes, it's possible.
He was a poet soldier, fighting the Paynim foe in India's burning clime, a glorious songster who swept the lute with one hand while he sabred the foe with the other.
Was he in the band?
The band? He was a major general.
Rises.
Oh, handsome?
I know not. I never saw him.
You never saw him?
I never saw his face, but I have seen his soul.
What's his soul like?
Like the frenzied passion of the antelope, like the wildfire of the tiger lily, like the pale earnestness of some love-sick thundercloud that longs to grasp the fleeting lightning in its outstretched arms.
Was he often like that?
Always.
A pleasant man in furnished lodgings. And where did ye see his soul?
Caroline sits.
He poured it into the columns of the Weybridge Watchman, the local paper of the town that gave him birth. Dainty little poems, the dew of his sweet soul, the tender frothings of his soldier brain. In them I read him, in them I loved him. I wrote to him for his autograph. He sent it. I sent him my photograph, and directly he saw it, he proposed in terms that cloyed me with sweet surfeit of their choice exuberance, imploring me at the same time to reply by telegraph. Then maiden-like I longed to toy and dally with his love, but Anglo-Indian telegraphic rates are high, so much against my maiden will. I answered in one word, that one word, yes.
And you've engaged yourself to a man whose face you've never seen?
I've seen his soul.
And when do you think you'll see his body?
Alas, never. For pity me, he is faithless. We corresponded for a year, and then his letters ceased, and now for 18 months no crumb nor crust of comfort has appeased my parched and thirsting soul. Fortunately, my solicitor has all his letters.
Oh, I see. And when does the action come off?
I know not. We have advertised for him right and left. 20 men of law are on his track, and my brother Bulstrode, an attorney's clerk, carries a writ about him night and day. Thus my heartstrings are laid bare that every dolt may jibe at them. The whole country rings with my mishap. Its gloomy details are on every bumpkin's tongue. This is my secret. Swear that you will never reveal it.
Oh, but you'll get thumping damages when you do find him.
It may be so. The huckstering men of law appraise my heartwreck at £5,000.
Well, and I wish ye may get it, dear.
Thank you. Oh, thank you for that wish.
You're not going?
No, I have come to spend a long, long day. I'm going to take my bonnet off. Dear Matilda, we have not met for many, many years, and I cannot tell you, Matilda, how earnestly I long to see all your new things.
Exeunt together as O'Phip enters.
There's an ungrateful daughter to refuse Whipple, and me pinched for money till I can hardly raise an egg for breakfast. But she shan't have Tom Cobb anyhow. I'll see to that. A pretty kettle of fish I'm boiling for myself. When I've sent Tom Cobb about his business, what'll the ungrateful villain do? Why, he'll sue on them bills of mine, as if I'd never been the next thing to a father-in-law to him. But that's the way with mean and thankless natures. Do a man injustice, and they're never satisfied till they've retaliated.
Enter Matilda with letter, pretending to cry.
Papa dear, I've bad news for you.
Bad news? At whose suit?
It ain't that, dear. It's my Tom.
And what's the scamp been doing now?
The scamp's been dying.
Dying? What do you mean?
I mean Tom's dead.
O'Phip looking at her sternly.
Matilda, are you in earnest, or have you been at the eau de cologne?
Oh, I'm in earnest. Tom's dead.
Who's killed him?
Faith, and he killed himself. He'd written to say so. Here's his letter. He encloses ye 2 bills, and appoints ye his executor.
You pain and surprise me more than I can tell you. Poor Tom. He was a kind and generous lad, and I'd hoped to have met these bills under happier circumstances. Well, his executor deals with them now. That's me. And the question is whether, in the interest of Tom's estate, it would be worthwhile to proceed against the acceptor. That's me again. And, on the whole, I don't recommend it.
Tears them up.
Now, tell me all about it. Don't cry, my child.
No, Pa. Well, it's like this. Ben Isaacs was over pressing and poor Tom was bothered and thought he'd make an end of himself, and just then he heard that the old man that Whipple called, Tom Cobb from the likeness, just had died. So Tom thought he'd make one death do for the 2. Sure, he's been economically brought up.
What? Am I to understand that Thomas Cobb has been trifling with the most sacred feelings of an old soldier's grey-headed old heart?
Well, he's shaming dead if ye mean that, and he hopes you'll go to the funeral.
O'Phip rises.
Shamming dead, is he? Shamming dead? Let me come across him, and by the blood of the O'Phips, I'll make him sham dead in real earnest.
But, Papa dear, the boy's hard pressed.
Don't interrupt an honest burst of feeling in an old military officer. For months I've looked forward like a simple old soldier to meeting those bills, and now I've destroyed them and deprived myself of a pleasure which might have lasted me the next 20 years. But I'll expose him. It's a crime of some sort, pretending to be dead when you're not. It's obtaining burial under false pretences, if it's nothing else. What's that?
Matilda with paper in her hand.
It's his will!
O'Phip indignantly.
His will?
Yes, would ye have a gentleman die without a will?
A gentleman? A beggarly scoundrel.
Opens it.
He leaves you everything, Matilda. It's duly signed and witnessed, all quite in form. By my soul, I congratulate you on your accession to fortune and prosperity.
It's just done to give colour to his death. Don't be hasty, dear. It's the first time I've been mentioned in a will, and maybe it'll be the last.
Mentioned in a will? It's an outrage, a sacrilege, I tell you, an insult to a simple old officer and his deluded guddle. To mention them in a swindling document that's not worth the ink it's written with. This is how I treat it, Matilda.
Crumpling it up.
This is how I treat it.
Throws it in the fire.
And if that thief Tom Cobb was here, I'd crumple him too and send him after it.
Enter Whipple, breathless and much excited.
Oh, Colonel!
Well, sir?
Here's news. My old man, the ugly old man who always went by the name of Tom Cobb.
Well, sir?
He died last night. Poor ugly old Tom Cobb died last night.
We all know about it. We knew it half an hour ago.
Yes, Matilda, but you don't know this. I went to his cottage this morning, and on the bed I found a hasty scrawled note written by the old man just before he died.
Colonel becomes interested.
It contained these words: "Look under the fireplace." I got a crowbar, raised the hearth, and under it I found gold, silver, and banknotes in profusion, no end of gold. You could roll in it, and he hasn't a friend or relation in the world.
Colonel O'Phip, during the last few lines, has hurriedly snatched the will out of the fire and smoothed it out, unobserved. He produces it with a dignified air.
What's that?
This, sir, is the poor old gentleman's will, in which he leaves everything to my beloved daughter.
But that's not old Tom Cobb's will. That's the will young Tom Cobb made in fun just now.
Sir, old Tom Cobb's dead, and here's a will signed Tom Cobb. Put that and that together, and what do you make of it?
Whipple falls into a chair, amazed. End of Act 1. Act 2 of Tom Cobb or Fortune's Toy by W.S. Gilbert. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Scene. The same room is Colonel O'Phip's house, but very handsomely furnished. Pictures, busts, etc. Writing materials on one table, sherry and glasses on another. Matilda O'Phip discovered working, Whipple on a stool at her feet.
My darling Matilda, who was it who said the course of true love never did run smooth? Are not our loves true? And could anything be smoother than their course during the last 3 months?
No, dear, saving that when you proposed for me, Papa kicked ye out of the house.
He did, in the effusion of the moment, and I honour him for it. On his unexpected accession to wealth, he naturally looked for a wealthy and well-born son-in-law, and I honour him for it. But the doughty old soldier was open to reason, and when I proved to him that his wealth depended on my secrecy, he admitted to his error at once, like a frank old warrior as he is, and I honour him for it.
Poor Tom. I wonder what's come of him all this while. It's 3 months since he...
Died.
Died, and I've never heard a word from him since.
Then he can't complain if you've been inconstant.
Deed, and he can't. It's clear a young gun must marry somebody. It's nature.
Enter Ophep.
Of course it is, and if he truly loves you, really and truly loves you, as I do, he ought to be delighted when he comes back to find that you've engaged yourself to a gentleman in every way his superior.
Delighted when he comes back? Divil a bit, by reason that he won't come back any more.
Won't come back any more?
Not he. Isn't he dead? And haven't we buried him, and paid his debts, and proved his will, and stuck up a tombstone that he'd blush to read? Sure, it'd be in the highest degree indecent in him to give the lie to a tombstone.
But Tom never had any tact, and if he should be guilty of the indiscretion of turning up...
Well, sir, if he should, I shall be prepared to admit that I've acted under a misconception. But, sir, before I yield possession of the estate which has so miraculously come into my hands, I shall satisfy myself beyond all doubt that I am not dealing with an impostor. Anyone who assumes to be the late Tom Cobb will have to establish his identity beyond all manner of doubt. And, as I've paid Mr. Ben Isaacs and his other creditors conditionally on his being dead, he may find that difficult, sir. He may find that difficult.
Exit Ophep.
Well, Tom Cobb may be dead, but when he finds out the use that's been made of his will, he'll not rest in his grave, I'm thinking. That's all.
But if he should return, if Tom Cobb's shade should take it into his ghostly head to revisit the scenes of his earthly happiness, promise me that you will treat him with the cold respect due to a disembodied spirit.
But when do you think he'll come?
Well, between ourselves, I think we may look for his apparition at an early date, unless the necessaries of life are considerably cheaper in the other world than in this. Tom Cobb's £25 must be as shadowy as himself by this time.
But if he comes to life, who's to kill him again?
Oh, your papa will have to kill him. It's his turn. Besides, it's a colonel's business to kill people.
And a doctor's too.
Yes, Matilda, but we don't pay people to die. They pay us to kill 'em. It's the rule of the profession.
Exeunt Matilda and Whipple. Enter Tom Cobb, preceded by footman. Tom is very seedy and dirty, and his boots are in holes.
If you'll take a seat, sir, I'll tell the colonel you want to see him. What name shall I say?
Tom aside.
If I give him my real name, he'll faint.
Aloud.
The Duke of Northumberland.
Aside.
That'll draw him.
Aloud.
I haven't a card.
Footman is incredulous. He is about to go, but returns and removes tray with sherry, then exits.
Well, nicely the old scoundrel's feathered his nest, upon my word. Real Axminster, satin furniture, ancestor's bust. And this has been going on for 3 months, and I only heard of it yesterday. Why, he's made me accessory to a forger, and I'm being advertised for in every paper in the kingdom. Why, it's penal servitude. Who'd think an Irish colonel could be such a scoundrel? Well, You never know when you're safe in this world. Upon my soul, you don't. I never met a man in my life whose manner and appearance inspired me with so much confidence.
Enter O'Phip.
Well, upon my word, Colonel O'Phip, you're a nice officer, you are. I make a will more by way of a joke than anything else, and you have the face to apply it to the property of a friendless old man who went by my name. Why, it's robbery, it's forgery, and Docket and Tape are offering £50 reward to anyone who can give information about me. Now, look here. Destroy that will and restore the property, or I'll answer this advertisement this very minute. I will. Upon my soul and honour, I will. There.
I believe I have the honour of addressing the Duke of Northumberland.
Oh, don't talk nonsense, Colonel. You know me well enough.
Am I to understand, sir, that you're not the distinguished nobleman you represented yourself to be?
Oh, haven't I been deceived in you? Oh, Colonel, Colonel, you have turned out treacherous. Upon my soul you have.
I'm at a loss to comprehend your meaning, sir. Will you oblige me by informing me whom I have the honour of addressing?
You've the honour of addressing a miserable, poor devil who'll be standing alongside of you at the Old Bailey bar in about 3 weeks, if he's not very much mistaken.
Upon my word, sir, you've got the advantage of me.
Have I? Then I'm the only man that ever did. I don't think Tom Cobb is the sort of man to get any advantage out of Colonel O'Phip.
Colonel O'Phip falls sobbing into chair.
What's the matter now?
You mentioned the name of Tom Cobb, sir. I had a dear, dear friend of that name once. He was to have married me daughter, sir, but he's gone.
Well, if that's what you're crying for, cheer up, because he's come back again.
O'Phip seizing his hand.
Me dear friend, me very dear friend, if ye can only assure me that poor dear dead and gone Tom Cobb is alive, me gratitude shall know no bounds. Maybe you're his brother?
His brother? Get out!
No? I thought you might be. I seem to see a likeness.
I should think you did.
A distant likeness, sir.
A mere suggestion, I suppose.
A faint, shadowy indication of a remote family resemblance. That's all, sir. I give you my honour. And now, tell me, where is he, that I may embrace him?
Well, he's here, but don't embrace him.
Sir, do you mean to sit there and tell me to me very face that you're my beloved old friend, Tom Cobb?
Well, if the marks on my linen are to be trusted.
Ah, sir, beware of jumping at conclusions on insufficient grounds. Depend upon it, you're mistaken, sir.
Well, upon my honour, I begin to think I am.
Tom Cobb, sir, is dead and buried. I had the melancholy satisfaction of following him to his grave. Me dear friend Tim Whipple accompanied me, and he's at the present moment engaged in comforting my bereaved and inconsolable daughter.
I'm sure I'm very much obliged to him. Perhaps I could do that better than he.
I think not, sir. He's doing it very well. Very well indeed.
Now, once for all, Colonel, this won't do. There are plenty of people who know me if you don't. Here's my card. T. Cobb, 6. In red cotton.
Showing mark on pocket handkerchief.
And I've several other marks of the same character about me, which I shall be happy to show you at a more convenient opportunity.
Sir, documentary evidence in red cotton isn't worth the cambric it's stitched upon. You'd have to find some better proof of your identity than that.
Enter Matilda.
Papa dear, Tim's going to take me to the theatre.
Sees Tom.
Oh!
My darling Matilda, my beloved Matilda. I'm so glad to see you again, dear. Why, it's 3 months since we met.
Kissing and hugging her.
What a fool I've been to cut myself out of this sort of thing for 3 months.
Kisses her.
How very, very well you're looking.
Kisses her.
Will you kindly leave off kissing me till I've had the pleasure of being introduced to you?
Why, you don't mean to tell me that you don't know me?
Deed, and I don't then, and yet I seem to have seen your face before.
Deed, and you have, and you've kissed it before.
I don't remember kissing it.
You observe, sir, she don't remember kissing it.
Oh, Papa.
What's the matter, my dear?
There's something about him that reminds me of poor Tom.
There's a faint resemblance. I remarked it myself.
Wipes his eyes.
Now, Matilda, don't you deny me. I've loved you so long in spite of your not having any money, and although you do go with the bills, and although you are older than I am, don't turn against me now. Oh, you do look so pretty.
Puts his arm round her and kisses her. Enter Whipple. He seizes Tom by the collar and whirls him away from Matilda. Tom seizing his hand.
My dear Tim, my very dear Tim, you're the very man I wanted to see. I am most unaffectionately delighted to see you.
Shaking his hand heartily.
How well, how remarkably well you're looking, to be sure.
Whipple shaking his hand with a great show of welcome.
Yes, uncommonly well, never better. And how have you been?
Very well, but rather dull. I say, I've gotten into a nice scrape. They're after me. They're advertising for me.
No.
Fact. £50 is offered for me. What do you say to that?
Well, I should close with it.
Why?
Because I should think it's a good deal more than you're worth.
Ha ha!
Ha ha!
What a fellow you are! Same old Whipple. I say the Colonel's a cool hand. What do you think he says now?
Nothing worth repeating, I should imagine.
What a caustic fellow you are! He says I'm dead?
Oh, he's an Irishman.
Ha ha! Oh, that's very good. That's so like you.
He's not dead, Colonel.
Feeling Tom's pulse.
There. Matilda, you hear that?
About to embrace her.
What are you about? How dare you embrace that young lady?
Stopping him.
You said I was alive.
But bless my heart, you don't suppose every man alive is privileged to embrace Miss O'Phip?
And a nice time I'd have of it.
I tell you, sir, Tom Cobb is dead and buried.
Yes, poor Tom, he's dead.
Wipes his eyes.
But you just said I was alive.
Yes, old chap, you're alive.
I see. Your theory is that I'm alive, but I'm not Tom Cobb.
Yes, that's my theory.
But I'm like him, ain't I?
Well, now you mention it, you are like him.
Matilda, once more, I implore you.
Seizing her hand.
Matilda, leave the room.
Takes her to door.
Sir, misled by a resemblance, which I admit to be striking, you have come here under the impression that you are my departed friend. I can excuse the error, but now that it's been pointed out to you, if you ever attempt to embrace this young lady again, I'll break your leg and set it myself.
Exit Whipple.
Colonel O'Phip, I...
Stop, sir. If this conversation is to continue, I must be informed whom I have the pleasure of addressing. Up to the present moment, we have only learnt who you are not. Let us now proceed to ascertain who you are.
Colonel, I'm in that state of mental confusion that I declare I don't know who I am. Give me a little breathing time. When a young man believes he's been Tom Cobb for 25 years, and then suddenly finds himself kicked out of Tom Cobb with nowhere to go, he wants a little breathing time to look about him and find a name to let.
Well, sir, for the purpose of this interview, one name's as good as another. Here's the Times newspaper. You'll find many a good name going begging in that. Choose your name. Here's a gentleman who was hanged this morning. Would you like his name? He's done with it.
Don't be unpleasant, Colonel.
Well, put your finger down. Take the first that comes.
Puts Cobb's finger on the newspaper at random.
Here's one. The Bishop of Bath and Wells.
Nonsense! Who'd take me for a bishop?
Then try again. Mr. and Mrs. German Reed.
Don't be absurd.
Well, once more. Major General Arthur Fitzpatrick. What do you say to that?
But I don't look like a Major General.
Well, sir, and what of that? I don't look like a Lieutenant Colonel, do I?
No, you don't. But a Major General in broken boots?
Sure, it's where your corns have been shooting through. You wouldn't have a Major General with corns that couldn't shoot, I suppose.
No.
Now, sir, it'll take a mighty deal of argument to persuade me that you're not Major General Arthur Fitzpatrick in broken boots. Now, I've the credit of the service at stake, and when I see a Major General in broken boots, me heart bleeds for him, and I long to allow him £1 a week, sir. £1 a week, to keep up his military position.
£1 a week?
No less, sir. Now, as long as Major General Arthur Fitzpatrick chooses to claim £1 a week of me, it's here at his service. But on the understanding that he resumes his name and rank and ceases forever the dishonourable and unsoldier-like practice of masquerading under a false name. Do you understand me, sir?
Yes, I understand you.
Do you agree?
I'm so hungry and seedy and wretched that I'd agree to anything. You couldn't oblige me with the first week in advance.
Sir, it has always been Terence O'Fifth's maxim to pay everything in advance. I'll go and get you £1, and you can amuse yourself by writing out the receipt while I'm gone.
Going. Tom sitting down to write.
Colonel, I don't know whether to be very much obliged to you or to look upon you as the coolest scamp unhung.
Sir, take my word for it. You've every reason to do both.
Exit Colonel O'Phip.
Now, that man's commanded a regiment for years. He's enjoyed the unlimited confidence of his sovereign, whoever that may be, and 1,000 men have looked up to him with reverence and esteem. And it's been left to me, who am not naturally sharp, to find out that he's an atrocious scoundrel.
Enter footman, followed by Mr. Effingham, Mrs. Effingham, Bulstrode Effingham, and Caroline. Tom takes up newspaper and sits.
The Colonel will be here directly, ma'am.
Exit footman. The others pose themselves in a group, as if being photographed. Mr. Effingham seated, Mrs. Effingham leaning on his left shoulder, Caroline seated in a picturesque attitude at her feet, and Bulstrode standing gloomily behind.
Adolphus, what a sweet spot! A rural paradise indeed. How balmy, and yet how cheap!
I am an old man, and I have learnt the hollowness of outward splendours. The house is, indeed, well enough, and it may be cheap, but after all, what is the house?
£75 a year, on a 3 years agreement, I believe.
Mr. Effingham not heeding him.
After all, what is the house but the outer husk? Let us rather learn to value the fruit within. The shell, truly, is goodly, but where, oh, where is the kernel?
He will be here in 1 minute.
All turn to look at him.
I beg your pardon?
They all turn slowly back again.
To the soaring soul, fettered by stern destiny to the office stool of an obscure attorney, the contemplation of such a paradise opens a new vista of life's possibilities.
My crushed and broken boy!
In such a home as this, I feel I could lay the warp and woof of a great life. In the dingy purlieus of Somers Town, life has no warp, no woof.
A kind of shoddy.
Sir!
Nothing. I didn't speak.
They turn back as before. Aside.
Extraordinary family.
If there is one class of young men I detest beyond another, it is the class of young men who see a humorous side to everything.
In the eyes of such a one, the doughtiest deeds are the subject of a sneer, the noblest thoughts the peg on which to hang a parody.
Go to, sir, go to.
Mr. Effingham to Mrs. Effingham.
I am an aged man. Let me play the peacemaker. Remember, you are not as others are. You are a thing of thought, an abstraction. You must not expect the young man of average taste to grasp you.
I do not expect any young man to grasp me.
And she's right.
Mr. Effingham rising and approaching Tom.
We pity you, young man, but do not despise you. Read the master thoughts of mighty minds. Withdraw yourself within yourself. Soar. Be abstract. Think long and largely. Study the incomprehensible. Revolve. So will you learn at last to detach yourself from the sordid world and float, as we float, in thoughts of Empyrean purity.
Oh, sir, my father is an aged man, and his words are wise. Be led by him, and you will prosper.
The young man is not of those who can detach themselves from the sordid world.
I beg your pardon. The young man is one of those who have detached themselves from the sordid world so completely that he can't get back again.
Enter Colonel O'Phip.
Now, if you've got the receipt. Mrs. Effingham, I'm rejoiced to see you. Miss Caroline Bulstrode, Mr. Effingham, my aged friend. Allow me to introduce you to a very particular friend and old comrade, Major General Arthur Fitzpatrick.
Tom bows.
Fighting Fitz, we called him.
What?
Major General Arthur Fitzpatrick.
Tom bows. Mrs. Effingham crossing to Tom.
Of the 29th Madras Native Infantry?
I have no doubt that was my regiment.
Viper!
Caroline faints in her father's arms.
What?
Viper! Deliberate and systematic Viper!
Goes to Caroline.
Poetic fiend in human shape, despair.
Blighter of fond and faithful hopes, behold your handiwork.
Why? What have I done?
O'Phip turning up his sleeves.
Aye, sir. What have you done? Answer me that. Come, General, no evasion, or by the blood of the O'Phips.
Turning up his sleeves. Caroline revives, and Mr. Effingham and Bulstrode turn up their sleeves.
No, don't hurt him. I am better now.
To Bulstrode, who is turning up his sleeves and advancing in a threatening attitude.
Brother, stand off!
Throws herself between Tom and the others.
Stand off, father, mother, brother, all. I have loved this man, and I love him still.
To Tom.
Arthur, my poet soldier, by your old vows, by the old poetic fire that burns in your heart and kindled mine, tell me, that you can explain everything.
Falls on her knees to him.
Upon my word, I shouldn't like to undertake to do that. Why, I never saw you before in all my life.
Despair that plea. It cannot serve you, sir. Your letters bind you. We are so advised.
But it can't be. It's impossible.
Oh, Arthur, I am told by those who understand these things that you have indeed compromised yourself to the extent required by our common law. But you will not, you will not compel me to bring our sacred loves into the court. You are a poet, a great, great poet. You will be faithful. You will be true.
Kneels. Mr. Effingham kneels.
Oh, sir, do not compel us to lay bare the workings of her young affections. Do not force us to bring her very heartstrings into court, that ribald minds may play upon them.
To the tune of £5,000.
Enter Whipple. O'Phip brandishing a big stick.
General, do not blight this young lady's heart. Give her your sacred promise, or by the blood of the O'Phips.
Sees that Tom has taken up a chair and looks threatening.
My son-in-law elect shall teach you your forgotten duty.
Hands stick to Whipple and retires. Whipple brandishing stick.
Yes, sir. Promise at once, or nothing shall prevent me from urging this young lady's natural protector to inflict on you the condign punishment you so richly deserve.
Hands the stick to Mr. Effingham and retires. Mr. Effingham brandishing stick.
You speak nobly, sir. I am an old man, but I am yet hale and tough as hickory. I have a brave and stalwart son, and it is to his hand I confide the task of avenging the insult offered to his outraged family.
Hands the stick to Bulstrode.
What prevents me from flying at his throat? What prevents me from whipping him as I would whip a cur? Tell me, somebody, what is it holds me back?
I will tell you. It is mercy.
It is.
Throwing away the stick.
I give you your life.
My lion-hearted boy.
Do you know that you are laboring under some surprising and unaccountable delusion?
Delusion, sir?
Delusion. Ha ha.
Caroline kneeling.
No, Arthur, no. This is no delusion. For see, I have your letters.
Feeling for them.
No, they are with my solicitor.
They are. I am his clerk, and at my broken-hearted sister's suit, cold, calculating man of war, I serve you with this writ.
Bulstrode presents writ, which Caroline, kneeling at Tom's feet, reaches and hands to him, kissing his hand as she places the writ in it. Tom looking at writ.
Breach of promise? Don't bring any actions. Don't resort to any violent measures. You say I'm engaged to you. I dare say I am. If you said I was engaged to your mother, I'd say it too. I've no idea who I am, or what I am, or where I am, or what I'm saying or doing. But you are very pretty, and you seem fond of me. I've no objection. I think I should rather like it. At least, I'll try.
Caroline flinging herself into his arms.
My poet soldier, my minstrel boy.
Mr. Effingham, Bulstrode, and Mrs. Effingham group themselves about Caroline and Tom. End of Act 2. Act 3 of Tom Cobb or Fortune's Toy by W.S. Gilbert. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Scene: a drawing room, shabbily furnished, in Mr. Effingham's house. Cobb is discovered smoking a pipe on balcony with Caroline. The Effingham family is discovered grouped, Mrs. Effingham seated, old Effingham leaning on her chair with his arm round her neck, and Bulstrode standing moodily behind. As curtain rises, Caroline enters from balcony and throws herself at her mother's feet.
Where is your poet-lover, Caroline?
I left him basking on the balcony in deep communion with his inner self.
Ah, what a priceless destiny is yours, my babe, to live a lifetime in the eternal sunlight of his poet brain.
It is, but you shall share it, father, mother, brother, all. We will all share it always. I would not rob you of one ray that emanates from that divine face for all the wealth of earth.
My unselfish girl.
How nobly he looks when, sickened with the world, he turns his eyes inward to gaze upon his hidden self.
None but Apollo ever looked as he looks then.
Truly, yet shall I confess that when I saw him first my idiot heart sank deep within me, because in the expression of his thoughts I did not recognize Apollo's stamp.
Fie, Caroline, would you have a poet carry his muse pickaback for doors to pick at? Fie, Caroline, oh fie.
Some thoughts are too deep for utterance.
And some too precious Why should he scatter such gems broadcast? My poet warrior thinks them to himself.
He does. It is in his weird and warlike way.
He comes.
Rises.
His fancy flight has ended for the nonce. My soldier minstrel has returned to earth.
Tom enters from balcony. Caroline goes to meet him and brings him forward lovingly. His appearance is somewhat altered. He parts his hair in the center and allows it to grow long. He wears a very low lie-down collar in order to look Byronic. Caroline throws herself at his feet, and Mr. and Mrs. Effingham cross and group themselves about him. Mrs. Effingham kneels, Bulstrode standing moodily behind his mother.
Arthur, ennoble us. Raise us one step towards the Empyrean. Give us a great thought.
From the vast treasures of your poet brain, we beg some spare small change.
Well, I really don't know. I haven't anything just now.
We are the bees and you the flower. We beg some honey for our little hives.
Tom with a desperate effort to be brilliant.
Talking of bees...
All take out notebooks and write down what follows.
Talking of bees, have you ever remarked how the busy little insect avails herself of the sunshine to gather her sweet harvest from every opening flower?
Mr. Effingham writing.
We have. How true to fact.
Bulstrode writing.
You said her sweet harvest, I think.
Her sweet harvest.
Bulstrode writing.
Her sweet harvest.
All shake their heads and sigh.
Her honey, you know.
Thank you.
Sighs. All finish writing and put up their notebooks.
You are a close student of nature, sir.
Yes, I do a good deal in that way.
How simple are his words, and yet what priceless pearls of thought lie encased beneath their outer crust.
Yes, I always wrap them in an outer crust to keep them from the cold.
All take out notebooks and write this down. Caroline writing.
He wraps them in an outer crust to keep them from the cold. And once I sneered at these grand utterances, just as we continually sneered at shapeless clods upon the road, which on inspection turned out to be jewelled bracelets of exceeding price.
Nothing more common. It's the old story. The superficial mind...
All take out books and write.
The superficial mind looks for cream upon the surface of the milk, but the profound philosopher dives down deep below.
Aside.
Much more of this, and my mind will give way.
You are a deep thinker, sir. I can fancy Shakespeare to have been such another.
Shakespeare? Shakespeare never said anything like that. How do you do it?
I don't know. It comes. I shut my eyes, and it comes.
All shut their eyes and try.
I cannot do it. Ah, me, I shall never learn to talk like that.
Mrs. Effingham rises, goes to Bulstrode, and leans upon his shoulder.
Bulstrode, had you had communion with the Major General in earlier life, he might have helped to shape your destiny to some nobler end.
Mr. Effingham crosses behind. Caroline and Cobb remain in conversation.
No, it might not be. I am fated. Destiny has declared against me. fettered to the desk of an obscure attorney, forced to imprison my soaring soul within the left-off garments of a father whose figure has but little in common with my own? Who can wonder that my life is one protracted misfit?
Mr. Effingham rising.
My boy, sneer not at those clothes. They have been worn for many, many years by the very old, but very upright man. Be proud of them. No sordid thought has ever lurked behind that waistcoat. That hat has never yet been doffed to vicious wealth. Those shoes have never yet walked into the parlors of the sinful.
Mrs. Effingham embracing him.
I am sure of that, Adolphus. I am very, very sure of that.
It may be as you say. I do respect these clothes, but not even a father's eloquence can gloss over the damning fact that they are second-hand.
Turns up and exit onto the balcony, as Mr. and Mrs. Effingham exeunt lovingly.
A blessing on him, is he not benevolent?
Yes, he looks so. Why do benevolent people have such long hair? Do they say to themselves, I am a benevolent person, so I will let my hair grow? Or do they let it grow because they are too benevolent to cut it off?
There are thousands of such questions that appear at every turn to make us marvel at nature's strange decrees. Let us not pry into these dark secrets. Let us rather inquire whether you have any chance of getting anything to do.
Rises.
No, there's no opening for major generals just now.
And yet how nobly you would lead your troops into action, caracoling at their head on a proud Arabian barb, and rousing them to very frenzy by shouting forth martial songs of your own composition. Oh, it would madden them.
Yes, I think it would. But at present, I've only my half pay, £1 a week. And we can't marry on that.
Why not? It is 10 shillings a week each. I am content if you are. Say, Arthur, shall we be made one?
My dear Caroline, it's nonsense to talk about being made one.
She takes out her notebook.
It's my experience that when poor people marry, they're made 6 at least, in no time.
Arthur!
Shuts up book.
Well, I must wait and hope. Oh, for a war!
Cobb much alarmed.
A vast, vast, vast war! Oh, for the clash of steel-clad foemen! Oh, for the deadly cannonade! And loud above the din of battle I hear my Arthur's voice, as like a doughty paladin of old he cleaves his path where'er the fight is thickest. Oh, I think I can see him doing it.
Exit Caroline.
Yes, I think I see myself doing it. Poor dear girl. It's a shame to deceive her, but what can I do in the face of this confounded advertisement, which still appears in all the papers every day?
Reads.
£50 reward will be paid to anyone who will give any information concerning the whereabouts of Thomas Cobb, M.R.C.S. Apply to Docket and Tape, 27 Paragon, Somerstown. For just 6 months, this blighting paragraph has appeared in every paper in London. Every one is talking about it. A Christmas annual has been published, How We Found Tom Cobb, and a farce called Tom Cobb Found at Last is playing at a principal theatre.
Enter Whipple.
Whipple, you here?
Yes, howdy-do. I quite well. So's Matilda.
That name.
She's downstairs with Miss Effingham.
Downstairs? And does she... Don't think I ask from an improper motive. Does she ever talk about me?
Sits.
Never mentions you by any chance, but she often drops a tear to the memory of poor, dead and gone Tom Cobb.
Oh, she does that, does she? That's rather nasty for you, isn't it?
Not a bit.
Sits.
It does her credit, and I honour her for it. The poor fellow's dead, and there's an end to him. I loved him as a brother.
Wiping his eye.
He did my botany papers for me at the college, but it's no use repining. No power on earth can bring him to life again now. How she loved that man.
Tom half sobbing.
Oh, Matilda. Be good to her, Whipple.
I will, General. Trust me.
Is she as fond of the theatre as ever?
Quite. We go every night.
She used to call it the theatre.
Whipple much moved.
She does still.
Bless her for it. And does she still like oysters after the play?
Always. She bargains for 'em, stout and oysters.
She used to call them histas.
She does still.
Oh, thank you for this news of her. Oh, Whipple, make that woman happy.
Trust me, I will, for poor dear Tom Cobb's sake. How she loved that man.
Wipes his eye.
But this is not business. The Colonel, who is downstairs with Mr. Effingham, begged me to give you this, your weekly screw. Allow me, Major General.
Gives him a sovereign.
Thank you. The Colonel is always regular and punctual with my little pension.
The Colonel is extremely punctilious about money matters. Oh, I quite forgot. He further desires me to say that from this moment he proposes to discontinue your weekly payment.
What?
From this moment your little pension dries up.
Do you mean to tell me that he intends deliberately to break his plighted word?
That is precisely what I intended to convey.
And cut off my only source of sustenance?
Absolutely.
But hang it, man! Don't he know that his liberty and wealth are at my mercy?
Yes, he knows that, and he's prepared to risk it. You see, General, Messrs. Dockett and Tape are looking out for Tom Cobb. Tom Cobb's wanted. I don't know what he's done, but people talk about a forged will. He's advertised for every day. You may have noticed it.
Yes, I've remarked it.
Well, if Tom Cobb is alive, this advertisement is quite enough to keep him quiet. The Colonel, having this fact strongly before his eyes, considers that, as he has no further interest in Major General Fitzpatrick's existence, he does not see why he should be called upon to contribute to his support.
But it's ruin! Hang it, it's starvation! Whipple, you used to be a nice man, once. Ask him to see me. Ask him to speak to me for 5 minutes. By your old niceness, I implore you.
I can't resist that appeal. I'll ask him, but I'm not sanguine. You see, he's been in the constant practice of breaking his promise for the last 65 years, and it's degenerated into a habit.
Exit Whipple.
And I did that man's. But I'll be even with them all. I don't care now. I've nothing to lose, and I'm a desperate man. My mind's made up. I'll write to Dockett and Tape and tell them the whole truth.
Sits down to write.
Now, Colonel O'Phip, tremble, and you, Whipple, tremble, and Matilda.
Throws down pen.
I would spare Matilda, but no, let her tremble too.
Finishes letter, about to ring bell.
Now, I shall soon know the worst.
Enter Bulstrode from balcony.
The Major General seems moody. On what is he thinking? On the sacking of towns, perchance?
Bulstrode, you're a lawyer's clerk, aren't you?
Cursed be my lot, I am.
Do you happen to know Docket and Tape?
I do.
Who are they?
My loathed employers.
What? Why then, you know all about this Tom Cobb, whom they are advertising for, and whose name is on every tongue.
I should rather say I did.
What is he wanted for?
Much.
Yes, but what? What?
It is a weird tale. Wild horses shouldn't drag it from me.
But hang it, you can trust me.
Bulstrode takes his hand.
General, I think I can, but I'm sure I won't.
But why do you object?
Major General Fitzpatrick, had you the password of some leaguered town, and an enemy, armed to the teeth, demanded that word at the pistol's mouth, what would you do?
Tell him at once, without a moment's hesitation.
Then am I made of doughtier's stuff. Sir, I hate my employers, I loathe their unholy practices, but I respect their secrets. Good day, I go to them.
Exit Bulstrode.
So it seems I've had my head in the lion's mouth for the last 3 months, without knowing it. Well. There is a grim justice in the fact that my punishment will be brought about through the employers of the son of the husband of the mother of the young woman to whom I was to have been married.
Enter Colonel O'Phip.
Now, sir, you've expressed a wish for an audience. On consideration, I have resolved to grant it.
You're very good, Colonel.
You may say that, sir, for I have discovered that you're an impostor, an out-and-out impostor, sir. You're no more a general officer than I'm a general postman.
But I never said I was. You said I was a major general, and you ought to know. It isn't for me to set up my opinion on a military matter against a lieutenant colonel's.
Sir, I'm a soft-hearted, simple old fool, and at first your military bearing deceived me practised eye, and I was moved to pity by your plausible tale and your broken boots. I was touched by your sorrows, and I was disposed to try and heal them.
The boots?
The sorrows. Now, sir, a lie has ever been me scorn and aversion, and an impostor me deepest abhorrence.
Colonel, I respect your sentiments, for they are my own. You discontinue my allowance, and you are quite right. Your hand.
Sir, ye spake like a gentleman. You're not a gentleman, but ye spake like one.
Sees note in Tom's hand.
What's that?
It's a letter to Docket and Tape, in which I confess myself to be the Tom Cobb they're advertising for, and offering to give them all the information in my power.
But you're never going to send that?
I'm going to send it directly.
You're doing it to frighten me.
Frighten a colonel? I wouldn't presume to attempt it.
But, you'll never send it. It would ruin you.
It'll ruin us all.
Rings.
No, they can't touch me, mind that. I'm a simple old man. It's well known, and easy done. Don't send that, Tom Cobb, and I'll pay you the £1 a week. Damn, I'll double it, treble it. I'm a simple old soldier, and I'm fond of you, Tom, and I'll not let you ruin yourself for me.
Sir, a lie has ever been my scorn and aversion, and an imposture my deepest abhorrence.
Enter servant.
Take this to the address at once.
Exit servant.
Effingham, Mrs. Effingham, Matilda, Bulstrode, Whipple, all of you, come here.
To Tom.
You've determined to inform on me grey hairs. I'll be the first in the field anyhow. Mind that now.
Enter all the characters from different doors. Bulstrode and Caroline holding back Tom, Whipple and Matilda holding back O'Fip.
What? What is the clamour?
Papa dear, what's he been doing to you?
This man, who has passed himself off as a Major General, he's a swindler, an impostor. He's deceived us all. He's practised on our inexperience.
Arthur, speak! What is this?
Don't call him Arthur. His name's Tom.
Tom? Impossible! Tell them, Arthur. Tell them it is false. Tell them that you are not. You cannot be Tom.
His name's Tom Cobb. Tom Cobb, Mr. Bulstrode, and he's a swindling apothecary. The man you've been advertising for these 6 months.
Caroline faints in Mr. and Mrs. Effingham's arms.
Amazement!
Monster! Once more behold your work.
Viper! Creeping, crawling, unadulterated viper!
I am Tom Cobb, MRCS. There's my card. Tom Cobb, 6.
Producing handkerchief.
Lead me away.
This is a day of great events. We have sought you everywhere for 6 months.
I know you have. Your advertisement has been the nightmare of my life.
Amazement! There was a nameless old man who bore so strong a resemblance to you that scoffers called him by your name. He died in squalor barely 6 months since.
All is over. Lead me away.
He was supposed to have much money in the house, though not a penny could be found. But besides this untold gold, there was standing in his name a sum amounting to £12,000.
I know nothing about the £12,000, but I am amenable to the law. Take me to my dungeon.
No dungeon yawns for you, O happy sir. Wealth waits you open-armed.
What?
You had a father once, that father yet another of his own, the aged man so strangely like yourself. That aged person had a son, that son another son. That son your father, and that other son yourself.
Then I am the old man's grandson.
That is the same idea in vulgar phrase. You are his grandson and his heir at law.
Caroline reviving.
My poet surgeon and my old love.
Embracing him.
My son!
My brother.
Well, Colonel, I must trouble you to hand over the property, if it's inconvenient.
It is.
From behind his handkerchief.
Well, I'm sorry, that's all.
Maybe you're sorry, sir, but you're not so sorry as I am. I'll go bail.
Papa dear, don't fret. Sure, I'm a poor penniless girl now, but ain't I going to marry a handsome and generous young gentleman of good fortune?
Leaning on Tom's shoulder.
And won't he be a son to you, and give ye a home for the rest of your days?
Whipple appears to remonstrate with her. Caroline expresses indignation and clings to her mother.
But I protest.
Tom Cobb, you spake like a gentleman. You're not a gentleman, but you spake like one. I accept your offer with pride and gratitude, my son.
Seizes his hand.
Get out!
Shakes him off.
Whipple, take this young lady. Matilda, go with the bills.
Hands her to Whipple, who takes her up, expostulating with her.
Caroline, you loved me as a penniless but poetical Major General. Can you still love me as a wealthy but unromantic apothecary?
I can. I can love you as a wealthy anything.
We all can.
All.
They group about him, Mr. and Mrs. Effingham on each side, Bulstrode behind, and Caroline at his feet. The Colonel, Whipple, and Matilda seated at table, with their hands buried in their arms. End of Act 3. End of Tom Cobb, or Fortune's Toy, by W.S. Gilbert.